playing Yu-Gi-Oh! For almost 17 years now, and there's not many decks that have really stuck with me in the way Ghostricks have. So, this archetype as a whole, I just think has such cool card design, and conceptually seems like it's really neat. Obviously, the whole idea of flipping it up, utilizing an effect, flipping it back down, playing into the whole idea that they're ghosts, and they like to play tricks, you know, it's pretty on the nose. This archetype has kind of always captivated me. I think the artwork is probably some of the coolest artwork in Yu-Gi-Oh! Nothing really like badass or epic, but everything is like adorable or just neat in the way it's designed. And unfortunately, despite this archetype not only being cool, but just having a lot of kind of fan favorite hype over the years, has never really materialized into anything. And I thought, what better day than today to take a look at this archetype, as Halloween is, you know, upon us, and it seems like we should take a look and see what you guys think, and what Ghostricks might need to have a chance to be competitively viable at some point in the future, or if that's even a possibility. But before I do that, I just want to ask you guys, if you have not already, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I would love to get to 3,100 by the end of the month. As of today, making this video, we're at 3,087. So that's only 23 subs to go, or 13 subs to go, can't do math. Would really appreciate the support if possible. It definitely helps and gives me the both inspiration and allocation to make further content. So let's jump into the video. I'm going to take a look at Ghostricks. I try to only spotlight cards here that are like actual good cards in the archetype, and even a few of them are a bit iffy. I want to know both, you know, what you guys think about the deck as a whole and what you think they need. Now, we had the Create a Card project for Konami. That was won by Inzektor, so we talked about the digital bug stuff. Hopefully Ghostrick, if they have another poll like that, or at least if it's something else that they revisit, might get some consideration, because I do think it's going to take a lot of work to kind of dig this up. But I want to go into it. So let's get started, starting with Jiangshi, which I think is probably the best card in the archetype. Basically, you know, can't be normal summon unless you control a Ghostrick. Typically, you don't want to normal summon it anyway. Once per turn, you can change it to face down defense position. So every Ghostrick has that effect. I'm not going to go over it every time. When this card is flipped face up, you can add from your deck to your hand a Ghostrick monster whose level is less than or equal to the number of Ghostricks you control. Now, there's many level 1s in the deck, so this is almost always going to have a target, but it does give you some more flexibility if you have 2 to get access to some of the other ones. Obviously, you can't search copies of itself, but you can get your Spectre, you can get your Lantern, and you can get access to Mary, which are some of the best cards in the deck. Now, Ghostrick Spectre is, you know, was my channel icon for a while. I love the art. It's just so goofy. I think he's a really good hand trap in the deck. So if a Ghostrick monster you control is destroyed by battle or a card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can special him from your hand and face down defense position, then draw a card. So he replenishes himself. He's a level 1, and he gives the deck a little bit of acceleration, and not much, but enough that it sort of can get things moving and gives you the ability to have monsters on the board to go into Xyz or Links on the next turn. So he's definitely a 3 of. I just love the artwork on it. I really hope one day that card will get a foil, even if it's in like an advent calendar or something. You know, obviously Jack Frost got a foil print in one of the advent calendars, as well as in, I think it was a deluxe edition. So it would be really cool to see that. But Spectre and Jiangshi, I think, are pretty solid 3 ofs in any Ghostrick core that you're putting together. Now, Mary is probably one of the few cards that's actually, like, genuinely really good. When you take damage, you discard her, special summon a Ghostrick monster from your deck in face down defense position. That's the only restriction. This can pull out anything, and you can still control other monsters when you take the damage. So this, as a standalone card, you know, is one of the best Ghostrick cards, and the reason it's kind of pricey is because if they ever did get support, and like I said, it would take more than 1 or 2 cards, but if they ever did get support that kind of pushed it over the top, this would be a card that would definitely go up in value. Not to mention, I mean, the whole, you know, being an anime girl on a card and that type of collector's market in Yu-Gi-Oh! Being something that people are interested in. Mary is a really good card too, and definitely a 3 of, and so we're looking at what would be 9 cards of a deck already. One of the tough things that would come up too about this with Ghostricks is that you're going to find yourself in a situation where there's a lot of cards that feel like they're must-plays, but you obviously, you know, to have the deck function, can't just throw 3 of every card in there. And so obviously everybody's going to have their own kind of takes on the build, but I think these 3 particularly that we've looked at, being Mary and, goodness gracious, I closed that off. 3 that we've looked at being Mary, as well as Spectre and Jiangshi, are absolutely 3 ofs in the deck. And it's just pretty much the easiest way to look at it, is to say that you're going to have to put these in. Worst case scenario, you know, you can banish them with a lure, which is good draw power for the deck, especially because of, you know, the amount of darks that you're playing. Alright, Lantern's another one that people like. I'm not a huge fan, and I'll tell you why, because it's basically if your opponent declares a direct attack or a Ghostrick monster you control is targeted for an attack, you negate the effect special from the hand. So obviously if a face-down Ghostrick is attacked, you can't use this effect. The game doesn't recognize what it is. And if you're playing the deck right, you're not wanting your opponent to be attacking you directly. I mean, you can sort of divert that with stuff like Alucard, but ultimately that makes this extra situational. Love the artwork, though, for the record. Like, really cool artwork. One of my favorite Ghostricks in general. I don't know if I'd play this at all in the deck. And, again, so much of this, because this is just kind of like a theory crafting type thing, would depend on what the actual new support was and whether or not it was any good. That one I'll leave up to you guys, sort of make that determination on. Back in the day when people tried to play this deck, it was basically a must-play. But nowadays, especially, you know, if you were to try to make anything even remotely viable in this day and age, I don't think this would be a 3 of at the very least. Jack Frost is pretty much that, but a little better for different reasons. So basically, if an opponent's monster declares a direct attack, you change that monster to face down defense position, then you special summon him from your hand. The reason I like that better is because it's reactive. So you can force a Synchro into face down defense position, you can force an Xyz into face down defense position. Can't do anything to Lynx, though. So again, you hit the same thing we hit with Digital Bugs, where it's like not having a defense or the ability to go into defense mode means that a huge game mechanic is immediately going to exist that makes this less effective against the meta in general. But at least he's got the ability to actually act as a hand trap that stops battle, and I mean, your opponent's probably not going to negate this with something, I don't know, Savage Dragon or something, but if they don't, then their negation that they have is going to be flipped face down, and maybe you have the ability to come back and make some additional plays on your next turn. So I think his utility as a reactive card in the hand in the deck is better than Lantern, simply because he actually does something to the opponent's monster. Ghoul is one I included on here because I think it does have the power aspect of it. This was a sneak promo, and it was always, like, to me, a one-of in the deck. Like, once per turn during your main phase, target a Ghostrick monster you control. Its attack becomes equal to the combined original attack of all Ghostricks on the field until your opponent's next end phase, but only it can attack. So, like, if you get late enough into the game where you can flip up a couple monsters and then use Ghoul and have, like, you know, get a boost off of the Xyz monsters and the other monsters you bring out, it's a neat card, and it gives you some offensive power that you may not otherwise have, but it's just archaically slow. Like, it's not going to push you forward in any capacity, which is why, again, I have said this at least 6 times since the video started, but the importance really is on the ability to get new cards that actually make the deck play a little bit faster. You can focus on that setting strategy and play a grind game type thing, but without the ability to actually have pressure cards and do something to your opponent, you're asking to lose to cards that are just 10 times faster than this deck ever was. Alright, so on to the Xyz. Alucard's an awesome card, obviously, Dracula. Your opponent can't target your other Ghostrick monsters or any face-down monsters you control for attack, so that's neat. Detachment material, target a set card your opponent controls and destroy it. Cool synergy with this. You know, Jack Frost, you flip the card face down, then you pop it. Obviously, cards like Floodgate, Trap Hole, which are like genuinely decent cards in this deck, give you the ability to out some of your opponent's problem cards, but some of them you just kind of leave them set with Floodgate, Trap Hole. It's gonna, until you actually have a combo to get over it, is gonna be more effective than popping it and giving your opponent, you know, access to that card's effects, if it has grave effects and what have you. And then if it's sent to the graveyard at all, you can add a Ghostrick card in your graveyard to your hand. This is not a hard once per turn. This is not a once per copy. So this basically is a self-replacing utility piece that is still really good. And if it was made today, I think obviously it would have some of those additional restrictions. But the fact that it doesn't means that you can link away with this guy, you can do some, you know, kind of wonky combos and recur some of your resources back. And that's really good. It can get spells, traps, or monsters. Ghostrick Dullahan, Legacy of Valiant, this was one of the second ones that came out. 200 attack for each Ghostrick card you control, so he's 1200 off the bat. If you got one of the field spells or a few other cards, he gets a little bit more attack points. Quick effect, Detachment Material, have the attack of an opponent's of a face-up monster on the field. Actually a decent, like, rank 1 in general. That's not specific to Ghostrick, so you can kind of do, you know, whatever you want as far as outing stuff. Same effect about if he's sent to the grave, target a Ghostrick card in your graveyard, add it to your hand. So the utility that comes with this and Alucard is not to be overstated, because if the deck were to ever get support, these would be two of the pieces that would make it actually able to kind of really have some kind of resource recovery. Even with stuff like Nadir's Servant and some of the Dogmatica stuff, you can trigger these effects, and Whether or not that Ghostrick Dogmatica is something you can put together, I'm not sure. But there's definitely some neat synergy with those, and they still have really good effects. So Cute Boss, I've never been a huge fan of. If you control another Ghostrick monster, your opponent can't attack it. Detach a material, target a face-up monster on the field with attack less than or equal to the combined attack of all Ghostrick monsters on the field, which probably isn't going to be that much. Destroy it, and if you do that, monster card zone cannot be used as long as you control a Ghostrick monster. Really situational. You have to overlay level 2s. I just don't think it's very good at all. Probably would hard pass on it entirely. And the last one, of course, the best Ghostrick Xyz from World Superstars, Angel of Mischief. You can Xyz summon it using a Ghostrick Xyz you control as materials, so you can make Alucard and then ladder it up. Alucard will still trigger when it's sent to the grave, so that's a really good, piece to this. If it has 10 materials, you win the duel. I mean, I've never seen that happen, but I'm sure you could do it. Once per turn, you detach a material, add a Ghostrick spell or trap from your deck to your hand, so basically searching. It's not a hard once per turn, so if you have a second copy, that's great. You can do that, and you can get plenty of searching, as well as laddering up into other Xyz if you want to, whether that's Phantom Knight's rank up magic or things of that nature. And then, of course, once per turn, you can attach a Ghostrick card from your hand to it as material. I don't think you'd really ever do that unless you were actually trying to win the game with that 10 material count, but this is just an insane enabler for the deck that actually gets you access to your cards. Now, the field spells. Mansion. This used to be solid. It's not great anymore, but basically monsters cannot attack face-down defense position monsters. They can attack directly if all monsters their opponent controls are in face-down defense position. So in other words, if you set all your Ghostricks, flip them back down, your opponent can only attack you directly. They can't attack the monsters. This makes it live, so with things like Mary and O-Lantern, you have the ability to get those effects off faster, but it doesn't really do much of anything. Honestly, it doesn't do much more than like Mystic Mind would for the deck, other than the fact that it halves the battle damage you take, or any battle damage at all inflicted by non-Ghostrick monsters. So is it neat? Yes, and definitely when the deck was like first introduced, you had to play it because it was really the only spell combo piece that brought things together, but I think it's been a little outclassed, and definitely that's one of the departments in which they need further support. Museum is the next field spell they got. That was a little bit later. Monsters you control except Ghostricks can't attack. Same thing as Mansion. They can attack directly if all monsters are face down defense position. However, any monster that inflicts battle damage during a battle while this card is on the field is flipped to face down defense position. So it's really just like a more... It does a little bit more than Mansion, but it doesn't have the battle damage. It forces the monster face down. So it's neat, but again, it's just not that great. Ghostrick Knight, I almost didn't want to include this one because I don't think it's all that great. When a Ghostrick monster on the field, your opponent cannot flip summon. Not that that's really ever going to happen. Although it does combo neatly with the field spell, so if you force the monster's face down, they can't flip them back up. It's not terrible, but the reason I like it is if it's in your possession destroyed by a card sent to the graveyard, it locks your opponent out of attacks. This would be a 1-of at most, and really only because it's searchable by a few things in the deck. So you could play, Book of Moon, flip their monster down, and then they can't flip it back up. And then you have Book of Moon at 3, so now it's a little bit more utility. It fills in spots within the deck. You could totally skip this, and it would not make a difference. Renovation. This card is nuts, and the reason you would play Mansion. So this is the one that came out in Extreme Force, the most recent one. Does the following. Target one Ghostrick field spell in your field zone. Return it to the hand, then you can activate one field spell from your hand or deck. Let me just tell you, combos exist with this to bounce Mansion, activate Mystic Mind directly from the deck, save your Mansion later, and lock your opponent out. So like, while mine is a degenerate card, it fits in this deck and can definitely make use of the fact that that card's going to lock your opponent out of effects and attacks. And then, of course, you can banish it from your grave, target a Ghostrick Xyz you control, special summon from your extra deck one Ghostrick Xyz monster with a different name using that target as material. You got an Alucard, you rank it up into Mischief, or you can rank it down into Dullahan. You have a lot of movement there in terms of what you can do, and obviously it helps to stack materials on Mischief, but that's an unrealistic win condition. What this card really does, though, is give you access to generic field spells and the ability to, kind of quick effect, bounce from grave, rank something up, do additional attacks. It's a really good utility piece. This type of support is what the deck would need to really be able to make an impact moving forward. 3-of, I would think, in the deck. Ghostrick Scare has always been one of those neat cards. It's kind of like a Book of Eclipse type. Target any number of face-down defense position monsters you control, change them to face-up defense position, and then you can change that many face-up monsters your opponent controls to face-down defense position, but up to. So ultimately, the ruling is your opponent has to control at least one monster in order for you to be able to use this effect, but if you set Jiangshi as well as something else. Your opponent goes, they summon something, you immediately activate this, you can flip their monster down, you also get a search off Jiangshi, so the card replaces itself, and it's recyclable from grave by the other one. So, numbers-wise, I have no idea how many of this you'd play, but it's definitely a card you would want to play. Vanish, not a huge fan. Reveal one Ghostrick monster in your hand. This turn, Ghostrick cards you control and face-down defensive monster you control cannot be targeted by or destroyed by card effects. It's not awful. It doesn't really do a ton. It's really just something that a Threatening Roar-ish card kind of does better, and the deck wouldn't want to play those cards anyway. But I thought I'd include it on here just because some people may find it to have a niche use in the deck, and at least the access is there. Go round once per turn in the battle phase, which immediately is off-putting, by the way. I hate that battle phase restriction on this. You either take a Ghostrick you control, flip it face down, and then flip an opponent's face down monster into face-up attack position, or vice versa. Flip a face-down defensive monster you control to face-up attack, and then if it's a Ghostrick, change your opponent's monster to face-down defense position. It's a Trolley card, and it's got cool artwork, but it doesn't do too much, and being limited to the battle phase is just detrimental to any possible combos you might do with it. And lastly, Ghostrick Break. If exactly one face-up Ghostrick monster you control is destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, target 2 Ghostrick monsters in your grave with different names from that monster, special summon them. I like it in the sense that it can recur Spectre and other things. What I don't like about it is that it has to be exactly one face-up Ghostrick monster that's destroyed. So if it was one monster in general, and they summon something and pop your set, you can combo off and do some neat stuff like Specialist Spectre, then chain this, special stuff back from grave. The fact that it's got to be face-up means realistically either your opponent's attacking into this or some card is being used. Your Ghostricks really shouldn't be face up, and if you're relying on that, it's gonna hurt what you're trying to do with the deck. So I just think overall it's not worth it. But some of the traps, specifically Scare, Renovation, Night I'm iffy on, but I could see where it's a neat Floodgate type card, are overall just really good. So just taking a bit of an in-depth look into Ghostricks. Like I said, one of my favorite archetypes, perfectly fits the Halloween season. What do you guys think? Do you think, do you have Ghostrick builds? Are there builds that you like? I mean, sound off in the comments below. Let me know, your thoughts on this archetype. What type of support you think would make them better? Do you think we'll get any support? I mean, obviously, it seems like they're bringing back a lot of old archetypes, and I definitely think Ghostrick is a fan favorite, so it would be really cool to see this come back. As always, really appreciate you guys for watching. I will see you next time right here at Love Shack. Bye-bye.